at the two teams, though. If you Barcelona, 6 Barcelona players, 3 from Real Madrid, the pedigree on the Spanish team and the experience allied to pedigree, they just couldn't.
But isn't there an argument also?
Class, Bill. There's a gulf in class between those two sides, and this is where you find out in the World Cup semi-final that, you know, for all the promise they've shown and they've impressed people with their ruthlessness when putting away poor opposition, it's also a sanitary lesson for English football that there is a team that buried them, being themselves buried by.
Well, that's the question Spain. I was going to ask you, because it actually.
I mean, anticipated, and the other thing you can do, Bill, you can now safely write off the Germans.
Can I?
Yeah. I tell you what it did, Bill. I think Spain made Germany look the way they made England look.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Germany.
Yeah. But that was something that you anticipated in a way, wasn't it?
Well, I was hoping, to be honest. You know, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But I mean, we do know that the Spanish players can keep the ball and keep it exceptionally well. And I think what's happened is they didn't play as well as they did, but they were playing against teams that didn't allow them to play. In other words, I think if Germany had played Chile and Paraguay, they wouldn't have looked as good as they did against England and Argentina.
Well, you made that point from the word go, that you thought they were flattered. You weren't 100% certain. But
tonight look back, they lost to Serbia and they struggled to beat Ghana. Now, Ghana opened them up repeatedly. If Ghana can open them up, well, for sure, Spain were going to open them up. And that was just common sense. I think there was, I think the Germans were so dazzling, putting away really poor teams. And that was an illusion that people believed in. Happily,
you didn't.
It's one I didn't. There's lots of others I did.
You believe it? No, you were very emphatic when I met you tonight before we came on here. You were emphatic that Spain were going to win this match.
But I've watched
what made you so certain?
Because I've watched Spain a lot of times, and I know how they keep the ball, and I felt that if they kept it for long periods, like I said before the game, the young lads in the German squad will not really know how to handle it, and they couldn't handle it. They didn't know. Between them, they couldn't work out a ploy of how to do it. You know, if they sat back or if they pushed up. Which way do we go here? And they're looking at probably the older players, Schweinsteiger being one closer to help them out. Give us a little bit of an idea what to do here. We cannot get a kick at the ball. And Spain done it magnificently. We were saying they haven't scored, they still haven't scored. But you always feel like they've done throughout the competition, they'll find a way in the end to break them down and they'll get the goal.
This was actually their third 1-0 win.
Yeah, but I thought it was a huge thing tonight, Bill, in my opinion. Torres not playing. From the start. I was waiting to see the team. I wouldn't have backed or tipped Spain to win tonight if Torres had been playing.
Would you not?
No, because I think it unbalanced the whole side, and he hasn't been fit. Villa would have been out on the left wing. Somebody else would have been out of the team. And I think the Torres situation was hugely detrimental to Spain not playing as well as they could in this particular competition.
But I think one of the things tonight that I found very interesting as well. Schweinsteiger did not dominate like he dominated other games. He was very quiet, wasn't he?
Well, it was difficult for him, Bill. I mean, he has 3 or 4 Spanish players around him, passing around him all the time. He is a kind of a playmaker after fashion, but he couldn't never get close enough. And Ozil and Khedira, who were alongside him, are inexperienced players whose basic game is breaking from midfield and getting forward. So they, as we said before the match, Germany would be designed to suit Spain, and that's the way it turned out. Even leaving aside the disparity in class and experience, it's the way the German team was set up, that's the way Spain would love a team to be.
And
it goes back, if you want to go back, then I take the way Mourinho and Inter approached the Barcelona problem was very, very different, and Germany weren't able to do that tonight. Didn't have the quality.
No, what does that mean for the final against Holland?
Intriguing. It would be very difficult. Van Bommel and De Jong will be in there kicking lumps out of Xavi.
And the awful thing is they'll probably get away with it.
They have done so far, Bill.
Well,
I think if you were playing tonight, I haven't said it before. We all said it in a different fashion before the match. That I think Holland or the Netherlands will be much more difficult to beat than Germany.
Much more difficult.
Yeah, because they'll have players in the middle field like Van Bommel and De Jong who will really get stuck into them and won't allow them.
The kind of level of possession they had tonight,
exactly.
is it?
Yeah.
And what will happen to Spain in that circumstance?
They
if
might
they're-
lose.
That's a gazillion question.
They won't
But
change,
it would
Bill.
destabilise their game, though,
Oh,
wouldn't
no,
it?
it won't be. They'll have to adapt to it in a different way. They'll have to be. What all the great teams do, Bill, is they have to adapt to the situation. In other words, there's no good saying coming up against the Netherlands and say, well, they got stuck into us and we couldn't play our own game. You know, you don't get anything for that.
But do they have
they've got to
the
go out and match
ability
it.
to adapt, though, John? Are they
Well-
playing a certain kind of, I hate to use the expression, kind of formulaic type of game all the time? And will they adapt to another type
well,
of
when you
game?
have the same players, you are inclined to play the same way, Bill. But you have to adapt it. Like Xavi and Iniesta and if it's Alonso have to be prepared to go and dig. I think they can do it, but they have to be. They're not going to be sort of fancy down about it. Or these fellas will wipe them off the pitch. So when you're coming up against Van Bommel and De Jong, you let them know you're going to be as tough as them. And we have to see. We have to see if Spain can do it.
Yeah, I think we all agree that Fabregas should be in the Spanish team from the start instead of Alonso.
He's not going to be, though, I
No,
suspect,
he's not.
judging by the
He wasn't even
substitutions today.
substitute. He wasn't even a substitute tonight. But Fabregas would need to be in the team. Alonso had a poor game tonight. He had a poor game at the weekend. He's not playing well, and that will be a factor. So, I think Holland's tough for Spain.
What about the Spanish defence? Can they be exploited by Holland?
Yes.
Yeah, they have been many times before, haven't they? They stood their ground tonight at the end when the barrage come and they headed things away, Puyol and PK, so they can do that, but they will come under an awful lot of pressure. And you can't see the Dutch getting at them. But I think the Dutch with the midfield, people, even you're talking about De Jong and Van Bommel, you've also got Kuyt who'll run all day and close you down. There's plenty of players in there. But the Spanish are European champions. They're in the final of the European Cup. So they can change. They must find a way to do things, as they have done in this competition. Find a way. We'll get there somehow. Okay, a lot of it's passion and they'll keep it and they'll keep it. But they do find a way. Because, as I say, European champions, final of the World Cup.
He's gotta
They
pick
know
the
different
right
ways.
team. He's not picking the right players. Busquets, non-contributor.
I would have Fabregas ahead of Busquets. I know he's just saying Alonso. I would rather have Alonso sitting in front of the back four because I think he's better at making longer passes than Busquets. Busquets is just here, there. But I think Alonso and Fabregas ahead of him would be better.
Yeah.
I think what happens in a game like that, Bill, if they're really as good as we think they are, well, I'm sure they are, Xavi, Iniesta, you can actually take advantage of the likes of Van Bommel and De Jong because they try to get tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most players can't handle it, but these guys, like a little 1-2, and you're actually making a plus out of a minus.
Right,
You know?
right, yeah,
So it'll be
yeah.
very, very interesting to see if they can do that. In
Yeah.
other words, you're relying totally on your skill, and it can be done. You know?
Yeah.
I think it can be
And
done.
what kind of a final can we look forward to then? Will it be very tight, very...
Well, I
I'm
think-
not going to say negative, but
Well, I think the Netherlands will set out to do that.
do you think so?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't think it'll be as.
It won't be a grand occasion. I mean, it'll be a grand occasion, but not a great football match. I mean, is it?
I can't see it being a great football match. I think it could be a great game if Spain, for example, get an early goal and get in front, and then the Netherlands have to try and open up a bit because they have players that can play a bit as well. But I think the early part of the game and up to half time, and they'd be content to scratch and dig and make it scratchy.
Like they did against Brazil.
Yeah.
Holland, they closed them down, they knocked people about, they kicked people, didn't they? They got fouls, but they changed. Brazil couldn't handle that.
That's
but I
correct,
think
yeah.
Spain are capable of handling it.
They're
better.
tougher, you mean?
I think they know. Like John said, it's they're clever little players in midfield who know how to pass it round you, and they'll wait for De Jong and Van Bommel to come in, and I think they'll entice them and maybe even get fouls and yellow cards.
I think
I think they'll be
Brady made the
mentally
point,
tougher,
actually.
Bill. I think they'll be mentally tougher. See, what happened with Brazil, Brazil were very good, should have been ahead in the first half, but it doesn't always go your way. They got a lucky goal against them in many ways, but instead of getting stronger, they collapsed. You know, they started, Rubinho started running at the referee, the other guy stamped on the fella against her. They lost their discipline and were gone.
And you don't expect that to happen
I
with
don't
Spain?
think that will happen with Spain.
In fact, Liam Brady was making the point that Spain are well used to being kicked all over the place.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, wherever they go.
Do you
I
ever
think-
get used to that, Em?
Pardon?
Do you ever get used to being,
Well, I've-
being kicked all over the place?
No, I don't think that. I don't think Holland will muscle them out of it. I think they'll try. But John, you know, when he talks about the little 1-2s, and Iniesta and Xavi can play, but I think will Robin play against Capdevila? He could be very dangerous against Capdevila. Van Persie, he's
not playing well.
But he's not playing well. But he's a top player. You only need 10 seconds of Van Persie and the ball's at the back of the net. So, and Snyder, of course, who'll be a big player in that game, getting in behind getting possession, going at the Spanish back four. I wouldn't.
But what you're saying actually is that it's going to be a game with wonderful, skillful players.
Well, I thought,
and it depends how it.
I think it'll be a very good final. I don't think it'll be a stalemate. I don't think it'll be negative. I think it'll be a completely enthralling final between two contrasting types of teams. But I think the point you're making, or the other lads have made, Liam made it, about experience and being kicked. I don't think you can kick Barcelona, these guys, off the pitch. In fact, I think John's right. I think Van Bommel might make a fool of himself.
That's what we hope.
Yeah.
That's for the sake of football, let's hope that
well, when
happens.
you played on the street, but that's what you did. I mean, I think the lads. What attracted me to the game on the street was bigger guys trying to get at you, but a bit of cleverness here and there, and you can expose that. You can make a, like I said, you make a fool of them, but you can make a
plus out of a minus.
it. Yeah.
All right, okay, time for a break. Stay with us for our competition.